Good day, Israelites. My name is Brother Greg Qualls. Welcome back to Talking with Israel. Jacob and Esau, twins, beginning on a level playing field, both struggling for attention, power, and wealth. One has succeeded in this world, and the other has seemingly failed. One twin are the so-called Jews of Israel, the Edomites. The other twin are the Hebrews. One of the longest continuous prophecies concerning Edom is written in the shortest book in the Old Testament, the book of Obadiah. Obadiah lays out the conflict between Jacob, and that's Israel, and Esau, that's Edom, its causes and its resolution, which will occur on the day of the Lord. In Obadiah 15 and 21, clear indicators of the end time appear. For the day of the Lord upon all the nations is near. As you have done, it shall be done to you. Your reprisal shall return upon your own head. Then saviors shall come to Mount Zion to judge the mountains of Esau, and the kingdom shall be the Lord's. That prophecy will begin to be fulfilled in the years prior to the day of the Lord, and ends as the millennial reign of Jesus Christ commences. But this sibling rivalry had begun to grow even before the babies were born. What Rebecca experienced with these two fetuses engaging in wrestling matches in her womb is probably beyond our comprehension. I mean, having an upset stomach or being somewhat queasy probably won't compare to what she was going through. She was going through an abnormal amount of jostling and grappling the unborn brothers were doing inside of her, and it grabbed her attention. Being a very wise woman, their mother went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord said to her, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples shall be separated from your body. 1 people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. That's verses 22 through 23. God puts this in perspective for her. And these 2 little babies were the seeds of 2 great peoples who would become populous and powerful nations that would compete with each other for many generations to come. Notice that in his explanation, God predicted who would ultimately prove dominant, the younger, whom we know as Jacob or Israel. The Apostle Paul comments on this in Romans chapter 9, verses 10 through 13. He says, "And not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one man, even by our father Isaac, for the children not yet being born, nor having done any good or evil, that the purpose of God according to election might stand, not of works, but of him who calls. It was said to her, the older shall serve the younger. As it is written, Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated." The apostle uses this situation to illustrate that God's choice, God's election, is based entirely on his grace and his foreknowledge, not on any kind of human merit. Esau's descendants are not without hope of salvation. They must, however, swallow their pride and admit that salvation is of the Jews through the Messiah, who descends from Judah, son of Jacob. So when Rebekah's days were fulfilled, she did indeed give birth to twins. And the first one came out red. He was like a hairy garment all over, so they called his name Esau, hairy. Afterward, his brother came out, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel, so his name was called Jacob, meaning heel catcher or supplanter. Isaac was 60 years old when she bore them, and the boys grew. From the outset, these babies were completely opposites. One was red and hairy, and the other was black and smooth. You'll notice that they don't describe Jacob at birth. He was just a normal black Israelite. Esau is not, and that's why he's described. Isaac loved Esau because he ate of his game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Now, Jacob had cooked the stew, and Esau came in from the field, and he was weary. And Esau said to Jacob, "Please feed me with that same red stew, for I am weary." Therefore his name was called Edom. Esau, remember, means hairy. Edom means red. But Jacob said, "Sell me your birthright as of this day." And Esau said, "Look, I am about to die, so what is this birthright to me?" Then Jacob said, "Swear to me as of this day." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and stew of lentils and went his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. Jacob didn't take his birthright. Esau wanted food more than he wanted his birthright. Now Jacob should have fed him. This is my belief. He should have fed him without bribery. But he didn't. And Esau swore to him, his birthright. Are you giving your birthright away? The right to be called brethren of Christ? Are you giving that short shrift? Are you willing to burn for what you want as opposed to what he wants? Esau showed that he had little grasp of the worth of the birthright. In fact, he valued his life far above his inheritance. The Bible's portrait of him suggests that his complete attention fell on whatever was before him at the time, and thus he took no thought of the future, whether of blessings or problems or consequences. I think we ought to pray on that, make sure that we are not focusing just on what is in front of us at the time. We should be thinking eternity. As possessor of the birthright, Jacob, with the help of his mother, tricks his father Isaac into passing down the blessing to him as well. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with an exceedingly great and bitter cry and said to his father, "Bless me also, O my father." But Isaac said, "Your brother came with deceit and has taken away your blessing." And Esau said, "Is he not rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and now look, he's taking my blessing away from me." And he said, "Have you not reserved a blessing for me?" Then Isaac answered and said to Esau, "Indeed I have made him your master, and all his brethren I have given to him as servants. With grain and wine I have sustained him. What shall I do now for you, my son?" Hebrews 12:17 says that though Esau earnestly desired the blessing, he was rejected, for he did not have the strength of character to handle it for God's purposes. He had already shown that he despised his birthright, and God judged that he would eventually have shown the same scorn for the blessing. Esau is a classic example of a despiser of good. Check out 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 3. In reality, the subsequent blessing that Esau receives from his father is tantamount to a curse. Then Isaac his father answered and said to him, "Behold, away from the fertility of the earth shall be your dwelling, and away from the dew of heaven from above. And by your sword you shall live, and your brother you shall serve. But it shall come about when you become restless, that you shall break his yoke from your neck." It is not a blessing, but a prophecy. More often than not, Jacob would be dominant until Esau would rebel in frustration and anger. Isaac predicts that they will frequently come to blows, and occasionally Esau's descendants will enjoy the upper hand for a time. Now, Esau's utterly human reaction upon hearing Isaac's words is consistent with what we know of his personality. Esau hated Jacob, because of the blessing with which his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, "The days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." Too late, he realized the value of the blessing, and now his entire attention was focused in hatred against his brother. Hebrews describes his attitude toward Jacob as a root of bitterness, a profound and deep-set animosity that ultimately corrupts and defiles one who maintains it. Read the book of Hebrews. In the book of Hebrews, to the Hebrews is his original name, and they're writing to the Jews there to tell them Christ has already come, and now they're drifting toward Christianity. But there are Jews who wanted to remain in Judaism, and that is who he's talking to. A lot of people get a lot of misinformation as to what happened with the law. You don't have to slay any lambs anymore, right? You don't have to put any blood on your door. That's what Jesus did. He took away the sacrificial system. I hope people understand that. Today, Edom hates Jacob. For Jacob's thefts of the birthright and blessing, Esau hated his brother enough to begin to plot his death. And this burning hatred has passed on from generation to generation ever since that time for approximately 3,700 years. This is the basic understanding of the contentious relationship between these two people. Take a look at Psalm 83, verse 5 through 8, and the nations listed there comprise a fairly complete rundown of the ancient enemies of Israel. And Edom, the descendants of Esau, is given primacy of place. All these different peoples, Edom, Ishmael, Amalek, Moab, Ammon, Philistia, Tyre, and Assyria, are among the major players in the Middle East today. The state of Israel is Edomite. The other are peoples from the Arab or Muslim world, Ishmaelites. Today, these people inhabit the nations of Lebanon, Syria, Turkey, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Egypt, Libya, Sudan, Morocco, Tunisia, and Palestine. The Edomites, the Hittites, the Hivites, and the Ishmaelites, they're all related by blood, marriage, and blood. The physical descendants of ancient Israel, the African American black people of North America, and the Jewish diaspora are the standard bearers of Western civilization. Those same players are still in the game today. When God repeats himself, he's usually not playing, and that's what he does. Genesis 36. Moses took the effort to include an entire chapter on the Edomites alone. He was careful to include specific details about who was born to whom and who ruled this or that area. In addition, he reminds the reader several times of his subject. In verse 1, this is the genealogy of Esau, who is Edom. Verse 8, Esau is Edom. Verse 19, Esau, who is Edom. In verse 43, Esau was the father of the Edomites. Edomites most likely drank in feasting and gloating over Israel when Babylon and later Rome captured and destroyed Jerusalem. In Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, Jesus says, I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and the blasphemy by those who say they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. And at chapter 3, verse 9, behold, I will cause those of the synagogue of Satan who say they are Jews and are not, but lie. Behold, I will make them to come and bow down at your feet and to know that I have loved you. Thanks for listening. May the eternal God make thy path straight, and the Lord be with thee and protect thee from all evil, and grant unto thee grace, mercy, and favor before those who see thee. And may none of the children of men have power over thee to harm thee. God bless you.